G'day and welcome to the Bloody Aussie Battler podcast with your host and fellow battler Mike Holt. The Bloody Aussie Battler brings you news, views and interviews as we discuss what the liars, thieves, criminals and traitors have been doing to our country and to Western democracies around the world. My guests discuss important issues and explain why and how it's time to drain the billabong to bring back decent, lawful, moral government that will serve we, the people of the Commonwealth of Australia. Join us now on the Bloody Aussie Battler. Dick Yardley's book, Australian Political and Religious Leaders, Treason, Treachery and Sabotage. Dick exposes how Whitlam, Hawke, Keating, Goss, Rudd and all the other Fabians have destroyed our manufacturing and agriculture. If you want to know exactly how they have done it, get Dick's book at advanceaustralia.com.au and click on merchandise. Knowledge is power. Get the power to fight the corruption today. G'day again, and I've got Kevin Annett back again after a few tries. Had a little bit of trouble there. Welcome back, Kevin.
Thanks for having me, Mike. It's always good to be with you.
My pleasure too. Whereabouts in Canada are you today?
Well, I'm still on the West Coast.
Okay, very good.
Rainy West Coast, yes.
Yeah, we're getting a bit of rain here too, but I don't think it's like over in your place. It's a relief here, actually. We've had a pretty bad drought. Anyway, into what you've been up to. I believe you've been a bit busy chasing after all these miscreants, and you've also been finding out a lot more about the status of the many children who've been killed by the church, specifically the Catholic Church. But are there any other churches involved as well? Tell us all about it.
Well, as a matter of fact, Mike, since you mentioned that, one of the big breaks we made in our movement over the last number of months is back in the summer, we discovered that the Mormon Church, it's called the Latter-day Saints or LDS Church, but they're the Mormons. They have a very strong tie with the Vatican. As a matter of fact, all of the top Mormon leaders were meeting with the Pope in Rome to open a new Mormon temple. Now, this is really odd because the Catholic Church considers the Mormons a pagan cult. The Mormons call the Pope the Antichrist. So why are they sitting down together? They've never had all the
Catholic Church a pagan cult too.
Well, so do I. A cult of emperor worship, right? But the point is that why would they sit down like that, allow a Mormon temple to be open? One of the things we discovered is that the Mormon, and we've had insiders come forward to talk about this, exactly the same ritual killings, sacrificial killings, child trafficking going on in the Mormon Church. And, as we've documented in the Church of Rome, not only are they sharing those cultic activities, but there was an item in the press in America last week where the FBI is investigating the Mormon Church for laundering over, get this, $100 billion. Now, they only have 16 million members around the world, yet they've got their hands on $100 billion. Obviously, they're laundering money and are involved with the Vatican Bank. That's the only bank in the world with those kinds of assets, right? And
unbelievable.
So basically, the Catholics are using the Mormons as a cover because they've had so much heat on them, partly because of the work we're doing about their cult child killing activities, that they're using other churches, as a cover and to use their facilities for these rituals and things like that. That's one of the important breaks that have happened. So I often say to people, no matter what you do, it has an effect, because the reason that's coming out now is because for years we've been pounding away that these cultic activities are not confined just to one church. It's kind of a whole global network.
What is wrong with these people? I thought we had left all this devil worship and everything behind centuries ago. What is wrong? Why are these
Well,
people so crazy?
well, they are crazy. I know. For a while when I was a minister, I did work in prison ministry, and I worked with serial killers, psychotics. The thing about these people is that not only are they psychotic individually, but they're part of a psychotic institution that says it's okay to traffic children. We've got to cover up these crimes and protect each other. There's no human feeling left at all. The humanitarian people tend to get forced out of those institutions, and the killers are left. So the thing about psychotics is that when you're talking to them, they never have any regret of what they've done. They just feel sorry for themselves. They feel that they've been victimized, right? It's like these narcissistic personalities that everything is just about them. So that's one of the reasons it happens kind of on an individual level, but it's a huge global industry. Human trafficking, like drug and arms trafficking, is multi-trillion-dollar industry in the world. And there's a lot of money to be made by it. And politically, it's backed by governments all over the place. They're all involved in these things. And so it's the same dilemma. What do you do when the criminals are in power, right?
Well, you do what you and I are doing, my friend, and many of us too. There's a lot of Australians now waking up to the criminals in government. Yeah. And I can tell you that the anger here is growing very fast. There's a lot of very upset people. So I think there's a big change coming in 2020. So it's good that this podcast is the first of 2020, and you've been such a strong advocate for getting rid of these criminals and pedophiles and just people who shouldn't even be alive, to be honest with you. And
as a matter of fact, this January 23rd is the 25th anniversary of my firing by the church in 1995 on the west coast of Canada for bringing out these crimes against Native children. And so it's kind of weird to think it's gone on for a quarter of a century in my life. But when you're at something, you have to stay at it, because I often say, the criminals never rest from their activity. Why should we, right? Why should we can't afford to stop exposing the stuff and confronting it, right?
Oh, I agree. And my motto is never give up.
Right.
And in fact, the motto for the Vietnam veterans here in Australia is never forget our dead, but fight like hell for the living.
Exactly, yeah. Good motto.
Kevin, you have lost an awful lot as a result of your fight. You lost not only your job in the church, did you lose your faith as well?
Well, I never really had faith in religion. My relationship with the Creator, with Christ, strengthened, because that's all I had left, right? But when you have your kids taken from you, when you're blacklisted, everyone hates you, there's attacks in every form coming down, it's a test. You either sink or swim, really. Right. And I found the thing that a lot of people find when your back is to the wall. We had a strength and a character I didn't think I had until the crunch comes down. And so that's seen me through a lot of the stuff. Dealing with people who are still in these churches, you run up against this mentality, well, I can't go against my faith. Well, I say, you can have a faith without belonging to these phony churches and murderous corporate bodies, right? Go worship on your own in your house. That's how the Christian church started, in these little house churches, right?
That's correct.
Right. So
people ask me, are you an atheist? And I say yes, but I'm a spiritual atheist. So I don't believe in churches. I don't even know if there is an actual God as they tell us, but there's certainly something spiritual in the universe. And, when you start looking at the universe scientifically, the whole universe is predisposed to creating life. I mean, it's just given. So there's obviously something, but I don't think we are capable of even understanding what it is. But that said,
I agree with you. I think there's got to be a lot. There's got to be a lot more humility shown by the people in religions, because I think in particle physics, I read somewhere that the dark matter and dark energy, it constitutes about 90% of the universe. We can't even observe most things. So how can we know the ultimate truth about anything? Right?
No, we don't even know
our own truth.
Yeah, we know that dark matter is a theory, but we can't even prove that it exists either. So who knows? Yeah. It may just be an absence of light. But
Right.
let's get back to what you've been doing in the last 12 months, or since I last saw you.
Yeah.
You've been travelling around a bit, and I know that you issued an arrest warrant for a few people. So tell us all about that.
Well, it's really a continuation of stuff that we've been doing for a lot of years. When I got blacklisted and shut out of Canada after we forced the exposure of genocide in Canada in 2008, when the government was forced to issue this kind of phony apology, I got invited to Europe, and we started this tribunal, International Tribunal of Crimes of Church and State. 2013, we helped force Pope Benedict to step down, along with 3 other cardinals, including the head of the Jesuits. All of them implicated. They were in our court indictment, the Common Law Court trial in Brussels. Now, what came out of that, they bring in the present spin doctor, Jorge Bergoglio, so-called Pope Francis, the smiley Pope, right, to put the new face on the Vatican. And it's funny, Martin Luther had this expression for papal reform, and he said it was farts laced with perfume. The same old shit, but it's got a nice smell to it. Well, I mean, that's pretty much what they've done. The Catholic Church is trying to make it look like they're all, acknowledging child abuse, while at the same time entrenching all their policies, ordering people to cover up this stuff when it happens. So for a number of years, we've had common law arrest warrants against all of these people, including Bergoglio, present Pope, who's implicated in child trafficking and murder in Argentina when he was the Archbishop there during the Dirty Wars in the 1970s and 80s. He was good friends with the military junta. He was, directly implicated in a lot of their crimes. So we attempted when he spoke at the World Council of Churches last summer solstice in June, there were common law sheriffs there. They got as far as putting their hands on the guy, and then they were assaulted by Vatican police. But after that, Bergoglio went into hiding for about a month. He just stayed off the radar completely. They're very concerned about these things because they know under international law we have every right to arrest these people, right? So we have to keep doing that. It was interesting when he went to Ireland. The turnout for him was 1/20th the size of the previous papal visit. That's and this right. is in Ireland, where they claim, we're the most loyal Catholic nation on earth. Well, hello, they only had 5% turnout compared to the last time. So that tells you something, right? I went into a friend of mine, Mary Kelly, in Dublin, where I've been doing work there, setting up common law assemblies with the folks there. And Mary Kelly said, "Come on, I want to show you." She took me into Pro Cathedral, which is the main Catholic cathedral in downtown Dublin. Seats about 500. I counted 32 people on a Sunday morning. So it tells you, the people are voting with their feet about these institutions, and that's what has the Vatican so worried right now.
Yeah, I think this is a worldwide trend too. People are not going to churches anymore. And generally speaking, here in Australia, I've looked into a church now and again. It's a wonder the darn thing didn't burn down when I arrived. But there's very few people turning up there, and they're mostly old people. The youngsters are turning away because they can see the hypocrisy. Yeah.
Well, I like that saying. Lenny Bruce, the comedian in the 60s, he said, "Millions of people are leaving the church and going back to God."
Kevin, because you have been doing this fight for so long and you've lost so much, can we tell the listeners how they can donate to help you out? Because I'm sure a lot of people are listening to this and saying, well, this guy's out there fighting for the right thing and truth and justice. Where can people send money to?
Well, we've tried a number of times to set up things like Patreon and GoFundMe, and they never forward us the money. It's sabotaged either through, however that happens. So we don't really rely on those internet donation things. We just ask people to write to us directly. My email is thecommonland@gmail.com. We can arrange wire transfers or checks made out to one of our people. But I would write us first, and then we can make the arrangements, because that tends to get sabotaged a lot. But thank you for asking, because we're completely community driven. We don't get funding from anywhere except the people. So we really rely on everybody. And I'd urge people to go to Amazon.com and look up all my books. I have 16 books that I've written under Kevin Annett. Yeah.
Which brings me to the next question, because I do have a few of your books on common law, and they're very, very good. And as you know, we're collecting signatures now on the My Will letter so that we can convene a grand jury. And I'm going to need your advice and guidance on that, because one of our associates down in Melbourne has got 53 indictments against various politicians, including a couple of ex-prime ministers, etc., for treason. But he hasn't been able to convene a grand jury because he's been trying to get into the standard law courts, where he says there is a grand jury there. We don't have to do that, do we? We can convene a grand jury because we are members of the Commonwealth. Is that correct?
Exactly. That's right, because your common law rights that date back to Magna Carta precede any crown jurisdiction.
Right.
And so crown, it's like ecclesiastical courts or crown courts. They are not the foundation of the law. Our common law inborn inherent sovereignty is the basis of all law and government. And on that basis, we can, and this has been acknowledged by the US Supreme Court. Judge Scalia said that grand juries are a fourth arm of government. They're a monitoring agency on the courts. And so it varies. The number varies. In some places it's 25 people. Others it's just basic 12. But a grand jury is set up to investigate and to recommend that criminal charges be brought. And they have the right to then convene common law courts. And don't forget, when people are thinking, well, what enforcement power do we have? Any court in the world can issue warrants based on citizen tribunals or citizen grand juries. So we can rely on other courts to issue those arrest warrants, and we can even deputize the police to act on in the name of our court. So there's lots of things people can do.
Yeah, the problem here in Australia is that the political parties took over Australia and took out our constitution using a thing they call the Australia Act, which was never ratified by the Queen, and therefore everything they've done since 1986 when they brought it in has been completely unlawful. So we don't have a lawful police force, we don't have lawful courts, we don't have lawful government. In fact, Australia has gone back to what it was established as, a penal colony, and we're all the prisoners.
Well, that's very accurate, I think, you know.
Yeah. But
and don't forget, those acts are statutes. So a statute has no authority without consent. That's kind of a basic common law principle. So you just say, I'm not harming anyone. I just don't agree with your statute. I do not give it consent. It has no authority over me. And it's that simple, right?
Yeah. I will be back in touch with you because we are going to set up these common law courts as soon as possible. Actually, we're setting up the grand jury as soon as possible first. I've asked a lot of people to send us their affidavit. We've got one group up here in Queensland, all the commercial fishermen are just fed up with the way they've been treated. They're being forced out of business. They're being harassed on the seas, on the land. They're having their boats confiscated, their licenses taken away, and they've said that's enough. We're not going to obey your legislation anymore because it's unlawful. So they're now writing affidavits for us, and as soon as we get enough affidavits, we're going to convene this grand jury. I've just found a place up the road near me where we can hold these grand juries, and we've also got a place in Melbourne which is very nicely appointed. So it's going to happen, and 2020 is the year when it's going to happen. So, Kevin, I'll be relying on you for some good advice.
Absolutely, we'll work on that. And another thing, Mike, is don't forget that, you know, when you hold a grand jury, it's like a public forum. You want to invite the public in. It's like theater, right? Absolutely. And a thing people should do as well is issue personal notices of liability. So you find out the names of these people who are going to harm the fishermen. And they all write the notices saying, we will charge you X amount of money if you follow through with this action. We're holding you personally liable. And that often gets politicians very frightened when you do that. And it's up to the people to hold their feet to the fire on this and say, look, you are accountable to us, we the people, and you can't worm your way out of this. And, you know, it's funny because I found this work when I took on the churches. They, in the Canadian government and the Crown, they all think, like you say, they think they're invulnerable and nobody can touch them, but they also have a latent guilt and shame about what they've done, and you can provoke them really easily because they're really hypersensitive. So the more public you are, the more confrontational, the better. They hate that stuff, right?
Actually, just on a side note here, I've written a book, an ebook, which is called Steps to Fight Fines and Stay Out of Court. And with the book comes a series of letters that you can use as templates to send to any of these organizations, the local councils, the police, debt collectors, anybody at all. As soon as they start asking you for money, you can challenge them. And this ebook shows you the laws that you can operate under and how to challenge them. And it supplies these letters. So lots and lots of people have been buying this ebook, and they're starting to really flood these organizations with objections. And it seems to be working. These companies now are getting more and more desperate. They're actually threatening people rather than going the lawful route. So I think once we start, as you say, holding their feet to the fire, this whole system is going to collapse. It can't stay like this any longer.
It's already started.
Yeah.
You know, there's a question of what we create to replace it. It's always a question of what we're going to build now as an alternative, right?
Well, I hate to boast, but I've come up with an idea for Australia. It's called the Advance Australia website. And in there, we have a plan for the future. And that plan is not set in stone. I've made it available for people to read and suggest changes to. And in fact, just recently, due to some comments made by people, I've amended the plan for reforming the electoral system. So, you know, but the thing is, if we don't have a plan, how can we move forward? So Advance Australia is the plan for the future. What's going on in Canada, Kevin? I think we'll make this the last question, but we'll certainly get you back on again. What else is happening in Canada as far as people standing up to this government?
The Trudeau government, the Liberal government, Justin Trudeau, got re-elected in another phony election. But what's come out since then is that the strong ties between the Trudeau government and the Chinese, removing all limit on Chinese foreign investment, allowing Chinese troops to be stationed on Canadian soil. These are acts passed in the Canadian Parliament.
Right?
Yep,
same here.
Okay. And the Chinese, we know, are directly involved in the disappearance of a lot of people, especially in British Columbia. A lot of Native families go missing because they're being terrorized off the land so the Chinese can grab the liquid natural gas. And, you know, so this whole Pacific Rim human trafficking network, it's, you know, the very generals involved in organ trafficking in China are on the liquid natural gas companies in British Columbia that are making the natives go missing. And the police reports that have been censored show that the natives' bodies that were found were missing organs, yet the Canadian press is never allowed to report any of that. So this is the kind of corruption and violence that we're dealing with, and we're doing our own grand jury investigation in the new year in Canada about all of this on the West Coast. I'm sorry, I should mention, folks, my website, murderbydecree.com.
Okay, I'll put that on the podcast as well. Kevin, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks, Mike.
I hope you enjoy listening to this and all my podcasts. The Bloody Aussie Battler podcast is just one of the things that I do to try and raise awareness of the massive fraud and treason that has been committed against us by the political parties. Back in 1967, I put my life on the line to protect our nation. I didn't do it so that a bunch of treasonous criminals could take over our government and steal everything from we, the people of the Commonwealth. So when I decided to do something to stop the treason and treachery, my skills from the Air Force were very handy. I run the Advance Australia HQ Group website, where we present a plan for the future. We can't get our country back without a plan. I also run the CIR Now website, where you will find heaps of useful information about the crimes and treason committed by the political parties. In addition, thousands of people have already signed the My Will letter to give a group of Commonwealth public officials the authority of the people to convene a grand jury. But we need many more signatures, so if you haven't signed yet, please do so. And ask your friends and family to sign too. Now, as you can imagine, all this takes a lot of my time, and it costs money too. So if you could spare a gold coin or more to support my work, please go to any of these websites and click on the donate button. If you can, why not make it a monthly donation? Just the cost of a cup of coffee every month will help us keep on spreading the word. Thank you.
When we first met, I knew that I was yours. forever? Or will you walk out? It felt so right, it couldn't be wrong. I hoped it might survive and stay strong. I would do anything to keep you near. But what about tomorrow? What do I have to fear? Will it be just you and me? Baby, baby, can't you see? You love me and I love you. Oh, baby, baby, what you gonna do? Come on, come on, come on, come on. Will you stay true? Oh, come on, come on, come on, come on. Will you stay true? Will it be just you and me? Baby, baby, can't you see? You love me and I love you. But baby, baby, what you gonna do? Come on, come on, come on, come on. Will you stay true? Oh, come on, come on, come on, come on. Will you stay true? Each day I wake up singing a song with you beside me. That's where you belong. Don't ever leave me, stay right here. Stay right beside me. There's nothing to fear. Stay right beside me. There's nothing to fear.